You wake up, and before your feet even touch the floor, the memory is already playing in your mind. The conversation you never finished, the words they said, the disrespect you swallowed. You are replaying the exact scene where you were hurt, treating your own mind like a crime scene you refuse to leave. You tell yourself you're just trying to process what happened, but this is not processing. This is a mental loop that is systematically destroying your present reality. The hardest truth you will ever have to face is that the original offense is no longer the problem. The real damage is not what they did to you months or years ago. The real damage is who you are becoming while you sit around waiting for an apology that will never arrive. Today, we are going to break the psychological chains of this endless waiting room. We will explore exactly why your mind refuses to let go, how over-explaining your pain hands over your power, and how to use strategic silence to permanently reclaim your emotional authority. The human brain is desperately wired to seek resolution. When someone harms you or betrays your trust, your subconscious treats the event like an unsolved puzzle. It convinces you that if you just analyze the situation enough, if you replay the memory from every angle, you will eventually discover the hidden logic behind their actions. Your mind believes this constant rumination is a defense mechanism designed to protect you from future harm. But look at the actual cost of this survival mechanism. Every single time you replay that memory, your nervous system cannot tell the difference between the past and the present. You are literally re-traumatizing yourself on a daily basis. You visit the memory thousands of times, hoping that this time it will make sense, hoping you will find a way to fix it. Yet, the past remains completely unchanged, while you slowly deteriorate in the present. You have to accept a brutal reality. The past does not change, no matter how intensely you analyze it. The answer you are looking for does not exist in that memory. Stop treating your trauma like a puzzle that needs to be solved. You do not need to understand why they did it to heal from it. You must make the conscious decision to stop walking back into the burning building of your own history. The most insidious trap is the quiet hope that they will eventually see the error of their ways. You maintain a silent vigil, waiting for them to acknowledge the pain they caused and offer a sincere apology. You believe that their validation is the final key required to unlock your peace. You feel that until they admit they were wrong, your suffering is somehow unresolved or unrecognized, trapping you in a perpetual state of emotional suspension. This is the exact moment you surrender your autonomy. While you're waiting for them to validate your experience, you are actively outsourcing your inner peace to the person who destroyed it in the first place. You are essentially stating that your emotional stability depends entirely on the unpredictable actions of someone who already proved they do not respect you. This is the very definition of living as a victim. This is not about letting them off the hook. This is about taking yourself off their hook. You do not need their apology to confirm that your pain is real. Your right to feel hurt does not require their permission. True justice is not waiting for the other person to change or feel guilty. True justice is you actively taking your life back and refusing to need their closure to be at peace. Because they will not apologize, you build a courtroom in your mind. You spend countless hours having imaginary arguments with them, delivering the perfect speeches you never got to say in real life. You outline all the ways they were wrong and you were right, trying to force them into a corner where they have to agree with your perspective. You are desperately trying to win an argument against a ghost that only lives in your head. This mental litigation is utterly exhausting and completely pointless. You are burning massive amounts of masculine energy defending yourself to an empty room. When you respond from this wounded place, even in your head, you are keeping the conflict alive. You are keeping their toxic energy circulating through your own nervous system. You end up more frustrated, more angry, and more depleted than before. You must fire the lawyer in your head. Close the case. The truth is, you do not need them to agree with your version of events for it to be valid. Let them misunderstand you. Let them believe whatever narrative makes them comfortable. When you stop fighting to be understood by people who are committed to misunderstanding you, you reclaim an immense amount of power. Your truth does not require their signature. Your first instinct when someone hurts or mischaracterizes you is to fight back. You want to explain your position, to make them see your point of view, and to correct their false assumptions. It is a natural human reflex to defend your character. But explaining yourself to someone who operates in bad faith is like throwing gasoline on a fire and acting surprised when the flames grow. Whenever you try to explain your pain to them, you inevitably say the wrong thing. You say too much or you say too little, leaving yourself feeling exposed and defeated. The tragedy is that many people then use silence as a weapon, trying to punish the other person by ignoring them. That is just emotional blackmail. It turns you into the exact toxic person you're trying to escape. The alternative is strategic silence. This is an active, conscious pause designed to protect you, not punish them. You stay quiet not to manipulate, but to assess your own internal state before reacting. When you refuse to engage, the other person is forced to sit alone with their own toxic energy. You do not absorb it and you do not reflect it. The noise simply dissolves into your unbreakable silence. There is a subtle reason you resist letting go. On some level, you believe that moving past the pain means you are betraying your wounded self. You think that if you stop fighting for justice, it means you are weak, or that what they did to you was acceptable. So, you grip the pain tightly, wearing it as a badge of honor to prove exactly how much you were wronged, but holding on to this identity paralyzes your future. As long as you are defined by what was done to you, you cannot evolve into who you are meant to be. This is where most people fail. They confuse fault with responsibility. They think because they did not cause the trauma, they should not have to fix it. This mindset ensures you will remain permanently broken, waiting for a savior who is never going to arrive. There is a monumental difference between saying this is my fault and this is my responsibility. The trauma was not your fault, but what you do with it from this moment forward is entirely your responsibility. This level of radical ownership is terrifying, but it is the only path to true power. You must choose to stop being the victim of your history and start becoming the architect of your recovery. When you're trapped in emotional pain, time feels like an absolute torture device. You constantly watch the clock, wondering when the heavy feeling in your chest will finally dissipate. You want the healing process to operate on your immediate schedule, demanding that the universe fast forward through the discomfort. You view time entirely as an enemy that is keeping you separated from your own peace. The reason time feels so agonizing is because you are using it to wait. You are sitting in the present, counting the days, secretly hoping that the passage of time will eventually make them realize what they did wrong. You want time to punish them with regret, but while you wait for time to change them, it is only draining you. Your life is passing by while you stand perfectly still at the scene of the crime. But here is the part people usually miss. Time is not your enemy. It is the most effective filter in existence. It violently separates the real from the imaginary, the important from the trivial. You must stop using time as a waiting room for an apology. Let it do its job. It is quietly clearing out the people and the situations that no longer belong in the new life you're building. There is a hidden motive behind your inability to move on. If you look closely, you will realize you are no longer just waiting for an apology to heal. You are waiting for an apology to prove that you were right. You want them to explicitly admit their guilt so you can validate your own suffering. You need their confession to confirm that you did not deserve the treatment you received. Waiting for this external validation is a dangerous game. It means your fundamental right to feel hurt is entirely dependent on the person who caused the hurt. When that validation never arrives, you start questioning your own reality. You wonder if maybe you overreacted or if you were somehow to blame. Your entire sense of self-worth becomes tied to the conscience of someone who lacks empathy. You have to execute a quiet, internal surrender. Not a surrender to them, but a surrender of the need to be proven right. Your pain was absolutely real, regardless of whether they ever acknowledge it or not. Your value as a human being is not reduced by how poorly they chose to treat you. Give yourself the validation you are desperately seeking from them, and the chains will instantly break. As you stop pursuing their validation and take absolute responsibility for your own emotional state, a profound internal shift occurs. You stop operating from a place of deep scarcity. You are no longer begging the world to treat you fairly. You are no longer trying to extract respect from people who have none to give. You have finally stopped bleeding desperation into your environment. When you operate from victimhood, people can subconsciously feel the lack of boundaries. They sense that you are waiting for them to define your worth, which ironically attracts more individuals who will take advantage of that dynamic. Your constant need to explain your pain and justify your boundaries signals to others that those boundaries are completely negotiable. The next shift is simple but not easy. When you embody radical responsibility, your energy completely changes. You become magnetic. You stop expecting people to respect you, and you simply become a person who fiercely respects himself. You no longer demand value from the outside world because you are generating it entirely from within. This silent confidence commands authority without you ever needing to say a word. But this newfound power comes with an immediate, uncomfortable consequence. As you establish these uncompromising new standards, the dynamics around you will radically change. The people who were comfortable with the old, compliant version of you will suddenly find you difficult to deal with. Because you no longer participate in the drama or tolerate disrespect, the foundational rules of your relationships begin to crack. People will start to walk away from your life. Initially, this will hurt. Your old programming will panic, convincing you that your new boundaries are too harsh and that you're making a massive mistake. You will feel tempted to lower your standards just to stop the exodus. You will feel like you are losing the people you care about because you suddenly decided to prioritize your own dignity. That is where the pattern repeats. If you are not careful, let them walk away. This separation is absolutely necessary. They are not leaving because you are doing something wrong. They are leaving because they can no longer treat you poorly. Every single person who walks away because they cannot meet your standard creates an empty space for someone who finally will. You must also understand that the process of mastering your own mind is not a perfect upward trajectory. You expect healing to be a straight line. You think that once you understand these concepts intellectually, the pain will vanish permanently. You assume that taking responsibility means you will never again feel the sting of the past or the heavy weight of an old memory trying to pull you under. Then, inevitably, a Tuesday afternoon arrives, a specific memory flashes in your mind, and you feel the exact same pain you felt months ago. You feel like you're right back at square one. Frustration takes over. You judge yourself harshly, convinced that all your hard work, your discipline, and your silence were a complete waste of time. You believe you have failed the process entirely. This is the quiet trap. Healing is not a straight line, it is a spiral. You are going to visit the exact same problems again, but you are now viewing them from a much higher level of consciousness. What used to paralyze you for months will now only pause you for a few days. You are not failing, you're simply practicing your new strength against a familiar weakening ghost. For years, your brain has been constructing deep, highly efficient neurological highways for your trauma responses. Every time you felt disrespected, you reacted the exact same way, carving the groove deeper into your mind. You essentially programmed a default survival mechanism that assumes you must fight, explain, or chase to maintain your safety. This is not weakness, it is just biological efficiency. The consequence is that you now run on absolute autopilot. When someone pulls away, your immediate impulse is to pursue them. When someone misunderstands you, your default reaction is to launch into a desperate explanation. You do this simply because it is the path of least emotional resistance. You are trapped in a predictable cycle, letting your old wounds dictate your present behavior without any conscious thought. To break this cycle, you must master the art of pattern disruption. You cannot just intellectually understand your trauma, you have to actively build new neurological highways. This requires the conscious, deliberate repetition of new behaviors. You must force your mind to take the difficult, unpaved road of silence and self-restraint until that road becomes your new permanent baseline. This is where true emotional discipline is forged. When you first begin to implement these new responses, it is going to feel entirely unnatural. You will feel as though you're acting out a script that belongs to someone else, because you have spent your entire life reacting from a place of deep emotional injury. Responding with calm detachment will feel incredibly artificial. Your nervous system will scream at you to revert to your old familiar chaos. If you surrender to that discomfort, the pattern repeats. Most men quit right here. They hate the feeling of acting out of character, so they drop the discipline and immediately return to over-explaining and chasing. They trade the temporary discomfort of growth for the permanent misery of their old habits. By refusing to tolerate the awkwardness of change, they condemn themselves to the exact same emotional prison. You must embrace the artificial feeling. Let it feel strange. When the person pulls away, stay completely still and focus on your own life. When they intentionally misinterpret your actions, simply say, "Okay," and continue with your day. Over time, through relentless repetition, these actions will cease to be an act. They will hardwire themselves into your character, fundamentally upgrading your operating system. As you consistently break these automatic patterns, a profound internal transformation begins to take shape. You are not just changing how you interact with the outside world, you are fundamentally altering your relationship with yourself. By proving that you can control your impulses, you start to generate a deep, unshakable reservoir of self-respect that you have never truly experienced before. Look at how you lived before this shift. You were constantly doubting your own worth, relying entirely on the unpredictable validation of other people to feel secure. You did not trust yourself to handle rejection, so you compromised your boundaries to avoid it. You were living as a fragile passenger in your own life, terrified that a single negative interaction would completely destroy your emotional equilibrium. That is where the pattern ends. You are now building a genuine internal security. You start to trust your own capacity to navigate highly difficult situations without losing your center. You realize that you can survive misunderstandings and rejection without collapsing. This self-trust is the ultimate armor. It makes you practically immune to the manipulative tactics of people who try to leverage your old insecurities. This level of self-trust inevitably leads to the total emancipation from external approval. You reach a point where you genuinely no longer need anyone else to validate your experience to feel good about yourself. The desperate hunger for acceptance, which drove so many of your past mistakes, simply evaporates. You stop looking at the people around you as mirrors meant to reflect your own value. The cost of living for approval is a life of constant anxiety. When you fear abandonment, you negotiate your dignity. You apologize for things you did not do. You stay quiet when your boundaries are crossed, and you betray your own principles just to keep the peace. You become a hollow shell, exhausted from constantly performing a version of yourself that is designed purely to avoid being disliked or left behind. But this is not discipline. This is self-betrayal. When you finally stop fearing rejection, you become truly free. You are free to establish ironclad boundaries without a single ounce of guilt. You are free to say no without offering a desperate paragraph of justification. You are free to be entirely authentic, standing firmly in your own reality without ever apologizing for the space you take up in the world. There is a common misconception about this level of emotional independence. People assume that building these boundaries and refusing to react makes you a cold, disconnected, and insensitive person. They believe that to protect yourself, you must construct massive emotional walls and shut the rest of the world out entirely. They confuse the mastery of their emotions with the complete suppression of them. This belief keeps you trapped in toxic empathy. If you think strength equals coldness, you will continue to overinvest in people who drain you, falsely believing it proves you have a good heart. But giving your energy away from a place of desperation is not love, it is an exchange. You were just trading your compliance for their temporary affection, operating entirely from a state of emotional poverty. The truth is the exact opposite. Becoming emotionally independent means you can actually love more deeply because you're no longer doing it out of a desperate need to be saved. You can give generously because you are no longer operating from a place of lack. You connect authentically because you do not need their approval. You become a man who chooses his connections deliberately rather than clinging to them for survival. You likely believe that the suffering you endured was a cruel twist of fate meant to break you. You view the sleepless nights and the anxiety as wasted time that ruined your peace. You assume that the emotional pain you experienced is strictly a negative force, a meaningless punishment that you just have to endure and eventually try to forget. But everything you have lived through, all the difficult lessons you learned, were not in vain at all. They are the raw materials required to build your new foundation. The danger of trying to blindly forget your pain is that you waste the education it provided. If you just try to numb the memory or pretend it never happened, you walk away with all the scars but absolutely none of the wisdom. You remain the exact same fragile person who can easily be dismantled by the next toxic relationship. You are discarding the heavy emotional weights that were explicitly designed to make your mind unbreakable. The pain did not come to destroy you. It came to reveal exactly who you are when all the external masks and expectations are forcefully stripped away. It exposed your real strength, the genuine resilience that only emerges when you have absolutely no other choice but to survive. You must take that suffering and actively transform it into wisdom. This is the ultimate alchemy of the masculine mind. turning deep betrayal into ironclad personal power. As you process this alchemy, you will begin to notice the layers of your old self falling away. Before the trauma, you probably spent a massive amount of energy maintaining a specific image. You tried to be the perfect partner, the endlessly understanding friend, or the man who never caused any friction. You were constantly managing the perceptions of the people around you, desperately trying to fit into their preconceived ideas of who you should be. Maintaining that facade requires a staggering amount of energy and ultimately leaves you feeling entirely disconnected from your own life. You were terrified of being your genuine self because you feared it would lead to rejection. But ironically, playing that compliant role is exactly what attracted the people who took advantage of you. Your willingness to abandon your own needs to perform for others was the exact vulnerability they exploited. That performative version of you has been permanently burned away. The person you have discovered in the middle of this pain, the version of you that survived what you thought you could not survive, is the authentic man the world actually needs. You are no longer the perfect, compliant version. You are real, grounded, and wise. You have forged a character that no longer needs to act because your raw authenticity is infinitely stronger than any mask. A critical misunderstanding about recovery is the desire to return to the past. People often say they just want to feel like themselves again. They want to rewind the clock to the days before they were betrayed, before they knew how cruel people could be. They treat the path of healing as if it is a journey backward, a desperate attempt to restore the innocence and the naive trust they possessed before the relationship damaged them. Going backward is the most dangerous direction you can choose. The person you were before the pain was the exact person who tolerated the disrespect in the first place. If you successfully revert to that old version of yourself, you will simply recreate the exact same toxic dynamics with new people. You will erase all the emotional muscles you have developed and willingly step right back into the line of fire without any armor. The path of healing is not about returning to who you were before they hurt you. It is about becoming the formidable man you are destined to be precisely because you navigated that pain with consciousness, dignity, and self-respect. You are no longer the same person who started this journey. You have grown, you have learned, and you possess a level of emotional clarity that no one can ever take away from you. Stand firmly in your new evolution. This transformation does not occur in a single dramatic flash of enlightenment. Many men sit around waiting for a massive paradigm shift, hoping to wake up one morning completely cured and utterly detached. They read books and watch videos, consuming the information intellectually, but they fail to apply it. They wait for a feeling of absolute readiness before they take any action, leaving themselves paralyzed in the realm of theory. By waiting for a massive shift, you ignore the micro decisions that actually dictate your reality. You continue to react poorly in the small moments. You still send the defensive text message, you still check their social media when you feel lonely, and you still over-explain yourself to strangers. You are dreaming of a grand victory while completely surrendering the daily skirmishes. Your lack of execution keeps the old neural pathways perfectly intact. You must commit to changing your behavior right now in the smallest possible increments. Choose one specific situation where you have been reacting from your wound, like your compulsion to pursue someone who pulls away, and focus entirely on changing that single response. Real transformation does not come from grand gestures. It comes from small, consistent decisions made day after day. You rebuild your mind one quiet victory at a time. We arrive at the absolute core of your independence. You must recognize that no one is coming to save you. Thousands of people have walked this exact path before you, transforming their suffering into wisdom and their victimization into victory. But they did not achieve this by waiting for someone else to do the heavy lifting. They succeeded because they stopped expecting the world to be fair and started demanding greatness from themselves. As long as you believe your recovery is dependent on an apology, a new relationship, or a change in your external circumstances, you remain a prisoner. You keep handing the keys to your mental cell over to the outside world. This passive waiting guarantees a life of chronic frustration and low-level resentment. If you refuse to take the wheel, you will always be dragged behind the vehicle of your own life, complaining about the direction. The choice is yours, and it has always been yours. Nobody else can decide how you respond to what happens to you. Nobody else can decide if you will live the rest of your life operating from the pain of your past, or from the immense power that the pain provided. You now have the tools to choose consciously and wisely. Your entirely new reality, built on silence, self-respect, and unbreakable boundaries, is waiting for you on the other side of that choice. The trauma you experienced was a defining event, but it does not have to be a permanent destination. The true tragedy is not that you were disrespected. It is that you spent so much time disrespecting yourself by waiting for an apology that was never coming. You kept yourself trapped in a mental loop, over-explaining your reality to people committed to misunderstanding you. But that cycle ends today. By embracing strategic silence, you strip the power away from the ghost of your past and return it to your present. You have learned that healing is not about going backward to who you used to be, but forging ahead to become a man of absolute emotional authority. Stop outsourcing your peace. Assume radical responsibility for your reactions and let the people who cannot meet your new standard walk away. Your energy is a privilege, and your focus is your greatest asset. If this message gave you the clarity to finally break your mental loop and reclaim your power, subscribe to the channel. We are building a community of men who refuse to let the past dictate their future. Keep your standards uncompromising, protect your silence, and never stop moving forward.